So my name is Michael A. Pope. I'm a teacher at Dodea Schools. I live and work in Japan. I've been here for the past 17 years, working on a military base. Before the COVID situation, we know that military students are very resilient and that they're used to contact with other students, contact with multiple contacts with different teachers, and they're used to just experiencing cultures from different places, either where they travel with their family for vacation or where they're stationed. So before the COVID hit, the students were traveling, they were experiencing life on base, outside the gate. We had multiple labs for students to access. I see again, the cultural connections were always there in class, on base, outside the gate. We had minimal concerns, and we noticed that the focus for many of our students and our staff was always looking at global connections, but also infusing global education. So we talked about that. And then the pandemic hit. When the pandemic hit, the whole world was shifted, and as well as our military closed community was shifted as well. For me, during the pandemic, something that me and my colleagues lost, we lost that human connection of teaching. It became digital. We no longer interacted with our students so freely. We were unsure the direction that the district was going with how we're going to teach the kids, how we're going to grade the kids, and the use of technology. And this was a complete shift from all the way from the custodial staff all the way up to the superintendent. And at that time, I was teaching exclusively only math. And we know that math is not easy to teach. It requires, and teaching online, of course, is cumbersome because math requires practice, feedback, and more practice. And so one thing I had to do when the COVID situation hit, our school was try to maintain my positive attitude for myself and for my students, and to think about the mental health of myself and my colleagues, and to connect with other teacher networks that I had made throughout the years. Another thing that hit me was my normal had went from talking to my students directly, interacting with my students directly, to doing this every day, putting on a mask, wearing the mask, and keeping my students at a distance. So the humanness of teaching was lost to me and my colleagues. The human aspect was lost because we no longer had that direct connection that we were used to for so many years. For many of our students, we saw that during the COVID situation, we saw that there's a lack of accessibility. Before then, there was multiple accessibility for students, but during the COVID situation, we saw a lack of accessibility to tech hardware and to internet services for our students. And you would think, being a military base with the government funding, we would have all these things, but we realized that many students were lacking these resources because many of them shared computers with their family members. Their mother and father maybe worked from home during this time, or with their siblings. So we had to deal with that issue. Some other things that came up was we had to really consider food insecurity in our community, which we never had to deal with or think about before. And again, going back to the biggest thing I thought was a loss of human interactions. One more thing that I saw as a big disconnect for our students was, and for me as well, was the gender inequality as we went to a digital platform, because you could not make sure that students got access. Female students, male students got the interaction with the professor or teacher as we did before. And going back to one of the final things which kind of connected back to the teachers was the mental health issue of the students. That was a big concern because we noticed that we had students who were on base who had access to other students. We had a large population of students who lived off post. So they were disenfranchised. They lived in a community where they probably didn't speak the language so well, and they were not surrounded by their family members or people that they knew. So it was a big disconnect for them as well. So we had to get used to understanding that the importance of mental health issues, and that in telling ourselves that it's not okay, that it is okay to not be okay. Some of the takeaways that we learned from the COVID situation was that for me in particular, for many years, I've been involved in many fellowships with the NEA Foundation, National Geographic Lindblad Expeditions, and Fulbright, and looking at how those fellowships showed me how to use technology years ago and how to integrate that technology into my classwork, into my classroom, so that when this pandemic did hit, luckily for me and colleagues that I work with, we had that experience, but many of my colleagues did not have that experience. and looking at the benefits and importance of those networks. So from this, it taught me the importance of connecting with other teachers, connecting in my classroom, connecting with teachers abroad, to give them guidance, to give them suggestions, give them tech support, and give them strategies so we can come together as united educators to benefit our students, to make sure they all had the benefit of a quality education. And afterwards, and when we finally did come back, I did reach out to some other teachers, and after the Global Teacher Summit, that really kind of hit home that why these global connections are necessary and these teacher networks are necessary to help us educators throughout this time. Because we noticed that when I talked to teachers from Brazil or Sweden, they said that they saw a different shift in their students. And we saw that this digital platform we're using, that many of our introvert students, we saw that many of them were excelling at this, but many of our extrovert students, the students who enjoyed the student contact, the teacher contact, they were the ones who were suffering. So it taught us to go back and reevaluate, can we use this, if we have to continue with this platform, can we use this platform as a way to meet the needs of all of our students? Can we do some kind of blended learning? Can we do some kind of networking with other classes or other schools so that we can service the needs of all of our students? So even though the COVID situation has shifted our education system completely, it has shown us that there are benefits to digital education. There are benefits to using the internet, but we need to find a way to use it as a viable tool to make sure we successfully educate all of our learners.